Welcome to the It's Over edition of Sharing Stocks. I'm duty geezer Leigh Allan. The guy got choked up about it. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent, Will. And we are recording this the day after the end of the regular season, in which we all know the Sox lost 121 games, despite winning 5 of the last 6, as Detroit had done in 2003, incidentally. I think they won 5 of the last 6 because, A, the Angels are as bad as they are. Angels may be worse. I mean, I watched those 3 games.
They might be worse.
I think
they might be worse.
Without Trout are worse. I think the White Sox are really a better team. Worse results, but a better team. And then Detroit didn't care. Once Detroit won Friday night, I think those guys had a party all night Friday night. Saturday, they were just all hung over. And then
they
had 3 bullpen games to save all their pitchers for the playoffs. So,
well, you got to, and I think, when it comes down to it, they were really just it was just kind of a seeding thing was kind of the only option the last 2 days anyway. And it's like, okay, you're either going to Houston or you're going to Baltimore, and both those teams are going to be tough. The only thing that matters there is having your pitchers aligned the way you want them to be aligned, which means you've got to have Tarek Skubal throwing game 1. So you're not going to throw them Saturday or Sunday to get that seeding. It's one of those things where playing for seeding can be important, but in that scenario, you don't want to, burn up your staff over the weekend to try to get Baltimore instead of Houston and then go get swept in 2 games in Baltimore. They're both good teams. It's one of those things where you just kind of need to prep your pitching staff and see what you get.
You want to face Corbin Burns or Framber Valdez. I mean, I don't want to face either one of them.
Which, speaking of seeding, I will say right now we are recording this Monday, the 30th at 10:49 Pacific time right now. Exciting day for baseball, actually.
Wow. Yeah.
Talk about a day that at the beginning of the year would have been rather quiet. Is now a very exciting day. We won't talk long about this because it's not White Sox, but what's going on with the Braves and the Mets and the Diamondbacks sitting at home watching and sweating through their T-shirts. It's really cool. It's kind of obviously nothing good comes out of a hurricane, but it is definitely a fun final bonus day of the regular season. Now that we don't have game 163 anymore and we don't have 1-game wild cards, it's kind of the closest thing we'll get to that. But White Sox.
White Sox, okay.
We haven't recorded since we did it. We haven't recorded since we got it. We got the 121.
So there's that. We made it. We set the record that could last for 62 years like the Mets did. I know we don't have a worse percentage than the Mets or the 1916 Phillies, but people don't care about that. What people care about is the most losses, and the White Sox have the record. Meanwhile, interesting things have been happening on the media front. I sent you the Athletics article. There was the first of the big national articles. The owner who thinks he knows everything. Then ESPN had a huge article of the total dysfunction of the entire organization. Then yesterday, Sports Illustrated came out with, I think, was the most interesting one because they interviewed like a dozen former White Sox players. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
And the different ways. I mean, they were talking about even the food is worse with the White Sox. I mean, it's just incredible. And then today, and I want to get to this after we do the White Sox stuff. Today, The Athletic had a piece on how Kansas City turned it around. And, 106 losses to the playoffs. They really turned it around. And it's a very interesting piece. And it would be a credible guideline for the White Sox, which they won't follow. Even though Jerry Reinsdorf allegedly wrote, but I think probably Brooks Boyer wrote, a long letter with all these apologies and how we're really going to turn this thing over and talked at length about one of the main factors of the attacks was a total failure of any kind of research and development. Talked at length about how we're going to get into analytics, which he's fought for 43 years, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I never believe a single word that Jerry Reinsdorf says, even though I don't think he really said this. I think Boyer did, but he had to approve it. Went out under his name. It's been interesting. In the middle of all that, you're not in Chicago. Lori Lightfoot came out and said people who are attacking the White Sox and Jerry Reinsdorf, it's because they're anti-Semitic.
What?
What? She was a horrible mayor. She's apparently also a horrible fan. she wants to attack the fans for attacking Reinsdorf. It's anyhow.
Here's what I'll say. Do you think the fans would be attacking Reinsdorf if we had 97 wins this year?
No, I don't think they'd be attacking Reinsdorf. So it's
probably
not.
So it's probably not anti-Semitism then, is it? No. You lose 121 games, and that's.
Nobody's carrying when they carry the banners and say, "Sell the team, bozo." Bozo is not a racist comment.
That is true. It is all encompassing. One of the reasons that I love the insult bozo because it's inclusive. It's inclusive. That's insane. We don't need to talk about that anymore. That's insane. It's infuriating. And I'm only mad about it because there are so many other reasons we don't like Reinsdorf that are valid.
So all of these pieces. I mean, I'm sure people have read most of them. I happen to be getting the Athletic free night now, so I read it. I'd stop because it's going to cost me 50 cents a month. I'm not paying that, but it's free now, so we're okay. But they really slam everything, just everything. And
what did they say with the Royals? Did they talk at all?
The Royals was fascinating. Here's what's fascinating about the Royals. First of all, they did not wait until God knows when to start making changes. They had the horrible year. 1 week later, I think it was October 6th of last year, they brought in everybody, the whole, owners, the front office, the manager. They had picked a good manager, Quatraro, and had a horrible year with them. He came out of Tampa Bay, and he brought Tampa Bay people with him. So there are people who knew how to win, which is not something the White Sox do. They don't bring people who know how to win. But people who know how to win, people who obviously Tampa Bay is the best in the business at analytics. So people who knew how to do analytics, how to do R&D from scouting to kinesiology to everything about it. And they sat down and they didn't expand their R&D and analytics by one or two people. They went huge. I mean, it's like half a dozen over here and another half a dozen over there, people from outside baseball, people from inside baseball, and just completely revamped everything they did to learn about the game and how to play it. They sat down with Bobby Witt Jr. and his dad and said, "What can we do for you, Bobby?" And Bobby said, "I want to play on a winner." I said, "We're going to do it." So they sat down with Bobby Witt Jr. Of course, they did that humongous extension, far more money than they'd ever spent on anything, and far more money than the White Sox have spent on an entire team. They sat down.
He's still underpaid.
Oh yeah, they sat down with Salvi Perez and about we're going to depend on you, Salvi, and he's a natural leader, which we have none of, but he's a natural leader and lead by example, lead by vocal impetus and everything else. He's perfect for that. Then when they knew they needed players, they were developing a fairly good offense. Because they play in that huge stadium and they went for speed, but there's not a lot of competition to get guys for speed. So they went for speed, which I love that. I mean, that Kansas City team is really nice. And then for pitching, the first thing they did pick up Will Smith, not the catcher or the actor, the closer, Will Smith. And they used Will Smith to be a recruiter for starters. Will Smith got on the phone to Seth Lugo, who was a free agent at the time, and says, "Look what they're doing here. This is what's happening here. Look at it.
Wow.
Come on." Lugo then recruited Waka.
Wow.
So they were recruiting down the line. Players were recruiting. There's nobody in the White Sox could recruit anybody.
That is incredible.
Jose Abreu, I think, could have done it. I think he probably did at one time.
I'm sure he did, especially with the Cuban guys.
There's nobody there now. And I mean, and there was just step by step of the things they did.
I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, it's just brilliant. And, you know, the reason I asked was I was like, all right, obviously Bobby Witt and Salvi had to bring them on board with this mindset. They had to convince these two. Those two guys, I've never met Salvi, but obviously reputation as one of the best clubhouse leaders in baseball. I did get to meet Bobby Witt Jr., who even in our brief time, I will say, seems like he's been in this league for 20 years. And
of course he has, because he probably, you know, with his dad, he probably was hanging around pros.
Could not be a classier act. Could not be better with fans. I mean, this dude just looked like it. It looked like it looked like this guy's the future of baseball. Just seeing how he interacted, seeing how he carried himself. So between Salvi Perez and Bobby Witt Jr., you have two of the best clubhouse leaders in the entire sport. And I mean, they're both top 3 probably. And so there's a good place to start. Then hearing about this game plan of getting Will Smith and then Will Smith recruiting, that is just beyond brilliant to approach it that way. You get two guys, you got your old vet who Kansas City loves more than ribs, and then you've got Bobby Witt Jr., who's not only a 5-tool player, but at times feels like an 8-tool player. I just don't even know what the other 3 are yet. And you get these guys with that mindset of, we can actually win. We can actually win. And we're going to actually try to win. We're going to put this together. Then to recruit someone like Will Smith, tell him, go hard, go out there and get your buddies. I mean, that is the way for a mid-market team, a small market team. That is the way for them to turn around. I mean, obviously that's what this article is saying, but it's so brilliant. And while the White Sox are not a mid-market or small market team technically, they are, at times it feels that way. And an approach like this would be huge. We don't have any players. One, we don't have any players near the caliber of Bobby Witt Jr., but we also just have no leadership anywhere close to Salvi Perez or Bobby Witt Jr. I'm blown away by what the Royals did.
I mean, the White Sox, the person who could be a leader just because he's the most senior guy and he's the best player would be Luis Robert Jr.
Right.
But Luis just isn't that kind of guy. It's not a knock on him. He's just not that kind of guy.
Yeah, he's quiet. He's a quiet guy.
He's a quiet guy. He's subject to being kind of depressed himself when things go badly. So rah-rah isn't in his nature. You know, apparently who we had did not respond to Jose, who was an incredible positive factor out there every day if both legs were cut off, or to Tim Anderson, who was an excitement player. People didn't respond to him either. Or they didn't respond to Liam Hendricks. Apparently, some of the other pitchers hated Hendricks because I imagine he came in there and said, "For God's sake, do your job." You know.
Yeah, he probably said, "You need to work harder." Yeah.
But I don't know. And then going back to these articles, one of the telling things I thought in the SI piece with the other players was a player saying, you know, I really think Ethan Katz is a good pitching coach, but he doesn't get the information he has to have to work with. Every other team has it. He doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's could be true of all the other coaches. Maybe the hitting coaches don't have the information that every other team has.
That makes total sense to me. That makes total sense to me because I can't figure out why Ethan Katz isn't good. I truly can't figure out why he is not doing better. And that makes all the sense in the world to me because he has everything that says this guy should be pretty good Major League Baseball pitching coach. But it makes total sense to me that they don't have the resources. I mean, he's not getting the information he needs. He's not getting the support he needs. So then what does he take to pitchers? How are they really going to improve? It's just crazy how lazy and pathetic the organization is with that stuff.
One thing I really I wish Miguel Vargas would retire so that he could be one of the people they interview, because Vargas with the Dodgers was fine. He had an OPS of 108 or something like that, which for a utility player, that's pretty good. And he wasn't a brilliant defender, but he played all of them quite adequately. I think he played everything, probably even catcher. And he comes to the Sox and he hit 115. I think his OPS was 14. And didn't look in the field. Of course, they had the photos and video of him sitting depressed at the end of the dugout. But I wonder if players coming from an organization like the Dodgers, where they have every possible piece of information available to them, and then come to a place where there's no information, if that's just totally destructive of their abilities. Maybe he desperately needed everything they could tell him and absorbed it. He's a good learner. And then he comes to a place where there's nothing for him to learn because there's nobody to tell him what it is.
I 100% believe that would be the case. It would be very disheartening, kind of disorienting in ways, to go from an organization like the Dodgers to the White Sox, where you have everything at your disposal and people who are actively trying to make you better at all times. And then to go to the White Sox where there's no information, there's no leadership, there's no guidance. You're kind of just out on on an island in the middle of a lake, just trying to find some way back over to the mainland shore. Like it's definitely a factor. And I had no doubt that when he went to the White Sox, we were going to see a massive dip. And I think that dip is really, really telling, because he was not terrible on the Dodgers. And he was also a known clubhouse leader and clubhouse guy and energy guy and attitude guy. He was beloved by the fan base, even though he didn't play that much, he was beloved by the fan base. So it is one of those situations where, you're going from the top to the absolute bottom, and honestly, a bottom that you probably didn't know existed, which is extra tough. You probably think,
well, when he was a kid in Venezuela, it was about equivalent, right?
Yeah. But you probably think leaving the Dodgers, okay, I know it's not going to be the Dodgers because so few places are. However, you probably think it's still going to be a Major League Baseball team being run efficiently, and he's going to have some of the same experiences. And that's just not the case. And that just had to be absolutely brutal. And I realize, they're getting paid a lot of money, but he's also not getting paid that much money. I think he's on a 1-year, $750,000 contract. So it's not the situation where you're making $30 million a year, shut up and play better. It's one of those where this guy's still learning. He's still young. He still has a lot to prove. And he was put in an environment that might take him out of Major League Baseball after this season. We'll see if somebody takes a stab at him in 2025, but
he's under White Sox control, so it's up to them first.
They still have him. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, because he's still in the original 6 years. He's a rookie,
I thought that he had moved on from that, but still, yeah. I mean, the White Sox might hold on to him. He's cheap, so maybe they will, and they like cheap. But other than that, I don't know why you would. He can eat some innings for you in various positions, but yeah, I feel bad for the guy. And loss 121 was brutal. It was kind of funny because I was so excited to watch it, and then when it happened, the post game show, all those guys who Ozzy and those guys who I thought were going to come at it of like 121, crazy, we did it. It was so deflated and so depressed. It was awful to watch, and it's not their fault. They just, as White Sox fans and former players and former managers and former World Series champions, as White Sox, they were really, really, really let down. They were really let down. It was fascinating.
Even though they knew it was coming. They knew it was inevitable.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. And even some of the ramp up, they kept that post-game show very lively and interesting and fun. And then this episode, right after Lost 121, it felt like a funeral for a franchise. It really did. It felt like the funeral for the Chicago White Sox. We should take our break right there. More to talk about.
Let's talk future when we come back.
That's what I was thinking. We will look to the future, as bleak as it may be, but there might be some bright spots. So hang in there. We'll be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. In the first half, we covered, the thing that happened. But let's talk about 2025, 26, 27, where we think we might be going. I'd like to say this. I'd like to start with this. Do you think anybody, and I know that the answer is yes, so I'm going to say then who will be the follow-up. Anybody who was playing in the last series in Detroit who was on the field for the Chicago White Sox will be on the field for the Chicago White Sox in 2020.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. Who will be in 2025? We're just talking next year, right?
Well, we'll start with 2025. Yeah.
Andrew Vaughn will be. I don't think Gavin Sheets is going anywhere, so he will be. Nicky Lopez probably will be. Brian Ramos should be. Lenine Sosa.
So we're already at 85 losses.
Lenine Sosa, who had a great September. Question is, did he just, make the adjustment and the league hasn't adjusted back? I don't, based on his history, have a lot of faith in Sosa. And unfortunately, even if he hits, he can't catch the ball. He's a horrible, horrible fielder. And you're not getting a lot of fielding here out of anybody probably, but Lopez, and he doesn't hit. Outfield, I don't think Luis will be back. I think they will trade him to get future position players. We got no outfielders, so use an outfielder to get younger outfielders. And I think it'll be great when he goes somewhere. I think he'll get it back, and it'll be 2023 and not 2024.
Depending on where he goes, but yeah, I think so.
Then Benintendi will be back because nobody will take him. Fletcher will be back because he's going to be the center fielder. I know you have some qualms about his defense, but basically he's a very exciting outfielder who makes mistakes, but with a terrific arm. He can't hit a lick. So if he's not in center, he's not useful. Deloach, maybe. So yeah, that's most of the team is back, I think.
Okay, so it was kind of a trick question because I was trying to set it up like maybe not, but the answer is most of them are going to be there. So the real question is, can this team recover at all in 2025?
I think I can cover a little bit, not much. 100 losses, probably the over-under is going to be 100.
I mean, if it's the guys you just listed, the over.
What are they going to do? Well, they've got, there's some young pitching. Now, I guess the big question becomes, will they have Crochet? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think Crochet's gone because they know they're going to be terrible the next 2 years. But I wrote some of these down. Okay, they've got Cannon, Martin, Thorpe, Bush, Burke have done something in the major league level that made you think if they're healthy, they could do pretty well. Noah Schultz will be up next year.
Yep.
And they have a bunch of guys. I'm not even going to name because I'll leave people out and I'll get the names wrong or something. But they have a bunch of pitchers who could become major leaguers in the next couple of years. Mostly not next year. They're going to need to get.
Honestly, the thing I am most optimistic about is starting pitching.
Oh yeah,
and and maybe that's crazy, but all of those guys, especially the young ones, performed where you would expect them perform at that point. And they weren't worse than I would have expected them to be at that point. And so if they are going to improve, and they all do need to improve, but if they all improve at a pretty standard rate, then there are some really good-looking pitchers.
Yeah, if Strini can find the strike zone, he's another one of them.
I mean, Burke has looked amazing.
Yeah,
a couple times. Like,
and Cannon at times. Cannon's pitches move all over the damn place when he's on. And if he can just keep that, tunnel that, if they used analytics, they could show him what's working and what's not.
Exactly. Well, there's your problem. But I even think Thorpe. I think Thorpe is a guy where
he got hurt. Position players, hurt. It's pretty hopeless, except for Edgar Carroll will come up. We should be okay at catching. Corey Lee.
I'm not a Corey Lee guy, dude. I'm not a Corey Lee
in the majors and a strong arm, but he's last in the majors at framing, and he's not good at blocking pitches. But Carroll, if they have Carroll and Lee becomes the backup guy, as he was kind of intended to be all along, they could have good catching. Colson Montgomery's turned out to be a bust. Doesn't mean he can't recover. He's young, but right now he's a bust. And that's really your star player, position player. They got nothing else. Ramos has already come up. I think he's going to be the starting third baseman, unless he has a bad sprain. But Montgomery.
So in the scenario where anyone hits the ball forward, we're in trouble. If they pop it up,
the other guys that are down there, like Walcott. Okay, Walcott can hit the ball 700 feet. He also can strike out 80% of the time in single A ball. He's years away from making it to the majors if he makes it. And now I think the question is on Montgomery. His strikeout rate at AAA went way up. Was he making adjustments to get more power, or something they were telling him, and he didn't get the hang of it? Possible in the minors, but boy, he just did not look good at all. And the experts, I think Keith Law's got him as a third baseman now, and not a shortstop. One of the guys, anyway, who does prospect list has him a third baseman instead of a shortstop, and he doesn't never play third base. You're right. All those guys I listed off, they're not a good Major League Baseball team. If they all do what they can. Benintendi had a great end of the year. I have no faith in Benintendi.
None.
Vaughn had a great September. I think his OPS was over 900. He still ended up. There's not a single position player on that team had an OPS of 700.
Wow.
And that's an OPS plus of down in the 90s somewhere for the very top, and then goes way down to nothing.
Unbelievable.
Then of course they were the last offense in the major leagues. I don't think that changes next year.
I don't see how
unless they go out and spend free agent money, and the Reinsdorf letters acting like, they're not going to do that.
What's so funny, as we are talking right now, my inbox, email inbox popped up, letter from White Sox chairman Jerry Reinsdorf. And it is, this was the thing that was already
blather. That the whole letter is blather, just total blather.
Yeah, it's nonsense. It's just absolute talking around the problem. It's just disgusting. It was a long, painful season for us all. We recognize on a daily basis that it is our responsibility to earn your trust, attention, time, and support. We vow to take that approach daily as we put the work in this offseason to be better. We owe it to each and every one of you. So what was the policy this season? And
it goes on forever and ever and ever. It's a very, very long
That's just the last paragraph. Yeah.
It's just if they read the Kansas City article in the Athletic today and learn, something could be done. Then they're not going to get into the playoffs, but they could improve 20 games next year if they read the Kansas City letter and learn. But that's not going to happen because Reinsdorf is beyond learning anything. And go back to the first headline of the first of those articles, the one from The Athletic, the owner who thinks he knows everything. And I think that's exactly the problem. And he's 88 years old and he's not going to change. And the only hope, and this is terrible, terrible, terrible way to lead it, since he won't sell, the tax attorney in him will not let him sell without the step-up basis. That's an incredibly stupid law anyway, but saving $100 million in taxes, unless he dies. I mean, we're all really sitting around waiting for Jerry Reinsdorf to die, and that's sad. That's really, really sad.
I think I think next year. I don't know that it will be a 121 loss season, but I do think it will be an over 110 loss season. And I think it's going to be really, really hard on the fans the second time around, because the only options to get better.
The third time. They lost 101 last year.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because the only options, are some of these young guys come up and they're way better than we expect. Probably not going to happen. As I said, I think starting pitching has potential to be okay, but nothing else really does. Or you spend a free agency, and when has that ever happened? And why would that ever happen? Like, this is all
really to do it for next year doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
They just won't be, unless you did somebody's 10-year contract, and they're not doing any 10-year contracts. So,
yeah, unless all of a sudden
they signed for 2 years is going to into the hole down in the gulch.
Exactly.
And who'd come? I mean, you're going to pay now. If there was any question in the baseball world, which I don't think there was, of how totally inept the organization is. Who comes? I mean, they know now who comes. Yes, money talks, and if they offered somebody $100 million and the best other offer is $75 million, yes, that person will come. But that's not going to happen. If somebody is getting an offer of $12 million for 2 years, or the White Sox offer them $13 million for 2 years, they're going elsewhere. The White Sox, if they offer $12 million for 2 years, the White Sox have to offer them 20.
If it's like a 3-year 75 versus a 3-year 100 thing, I actually don't think they're coming to take the 100 from the White Sox either. I don't. I mean, if it's a super long-term thing, I actually no, because the only person you're going to offer long-term to is a superstar like Juan Soto. And I think if the Yankees offered Juan Soto, let's say $500 million over 8, and the White Sox offered him $650 over 8, he's a Yankee.
Yeah, I think so too. Players, I mean, the money becomes so silly. In the huge players, it's bragging rights. I got the biggest contract for a third baseman, something like that. But then you get down to the very bottom levels, and it's money because that's your livelihood, and you're just spreading it out over a lifetime, in your kid's lifetime. In the middle, they're so damn rich.
Yeah.
Yes, the money's nice, but they are so rich, and they're athletes. They're professional athletes. They got there because they want to win, because they play to win, and they want to win, and they try to do everything they can to win. And why would you put yourself in a situation of being depressed when you can make millions of dollars being happy?
Exactly. That's what I mean. That's why I say, like, even something like a 75 over 3 versus 100 over 3. I think people are taking 70 right now. I think people are taking 75 over 3 to play for a winner and to avoid playing for the White Sox. Not that they're going to offer anyone $100 million over 3 years, but in that hypothetical scenario, when you're a little kid and you're playing baseball, you don't, you're throwing the ball up to yourself in the yard, and you're throwing it and you're making a diving catch and you're yelling like, "Oh, Will saves the game." You never make that diving catch and say, oh, Will caught the ball, but it's too bad that's lost 117 on the year. No, it's you grow up, you want to play Major League Baseball. That's the dream. But the real dream is playing Major League Baseball and being a winner. You know, it is obviously not a bad life to go play Major League Baseball and never win anything. But it is not the dream of any of these guys to go to Major League Baseball and lose. It just isn't. It's not what is inside of you as a baseball player. Heck, even on my slow pitch softball teams, we never go out there with the dream of let's just have fun and see what happens. It's, yeah, let's have fun, but let's win this game. We want to leave winning, being winners. That now multiply that by a lifetime of commitment and hard work and punishing your body and putting in grueling hours and all this stuff. That's Major League Baseball. These guys want to win games. And now more than anything, you want to be associated with a winning team because, and this is kind of the Jordan LeBron debate that, you know, has fueled this even more, is does winning championships make you the greatest player of all time? Do you need to win championships to be considered great? And, you know, we're going to get our first taste ever of Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs on Saturday, which it's criminal that that guy has not been in the postseason. Came up in 2016, has not been in the postseason until this Saturday. And I'm fortunate enough that I'll get to be there for that. But these guys want to win. And nobody is taking more money. The only way someone's taking more money right now is if it's a mid-tier guy and he gets an offer from the White Sox that's so unbelievably bloated, you can't say no. I'm talking like somebody's offering him 2 years, $25 million, and the White Sox are offering him 4 years, $130. You know, and that's just never going to happen. So there is just nothing that is going to make anyone want to play for the Chicago White Sox next year or probably the year after. I mean, that can change based on what we could get for Luis Robert or Garrett Crochet. You could have some hope for 2026, 2027, 2028. But as of right now, there is actually still not really hope for those years. So I don't know why you would get a big name. I don't know why anyone would take money to come play for the White Sox. I think it is a place you go play for right now when your agent says this is the only thing you're going to get.
Yeah, this is your offer. Take it or leave it. You can go back and sell cars. Yeah.
Or if you're a low level guy and you're young and you're past your rookie thing, but this is if they say the White Sox will give you 4 years, $12 million, and you know Minnesota's offering you 1 year, $1.1 million, you might then
and you get into technical stuff like you go to this team, you're just going to be a utility infielder. You go to the White Sox, you're the starting shortstop. That makes a difference because they want to play. And they didn't.
But I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, though. I'll tell you this. Miguel Vargas would rather be filling in a bench role for the Los Angeles Dodgers right now than he would starting for the Chicago White Sox. And you've got a guy you can ask about it. You know, I firmly believe these guys want to win. Kike Hernandez is in LA. He does not play all that much, but he knows that that's where he can be his most successful, and that's the team that he can be the most successful on. He wants to win. These guys want to win. And I just don't see why any free agent who has any sort of clout would come to the Chicago White Sox. I mean, if you offered Juan Soto 8 years, $1.5 billion, I bet he comes. But, you know, overpaying a guy by $1 billion is also not going to set you up for a good future. So, of course, I don't see Reinsdorf parting with $100 million, let alone $1.5 billion. But that's the only way you're getting a superstar is by doing something that's so outlandish. It's actually a bad idea.
You'd have to develop a superstar. And of course, they don't even get an early draft pick out of this year because of the change in the rules. They're number 10. maybe they'll get lucky and get a good one. They've not been good at drafting historically, although, they get some. Schultz seems to be a good pick. He's not in the majors yet, but we'll see. The guy this year, Smith, pretty impressive so far. But that's all pitching. They've done well in the pitching. As far as the hitting, one thing we've not gotten to, and I think we're out of time, but we'll save for the next round. Managing, looking at the future of managing and coaching.
Yeah, I mean,
the only thing I'll say before, because this doesn't take time, because I know we're out of time, is they've got to get Tony La Russa the hell out of there. And the only way that's happening is if Jerry Reinsdorf dies.
Do you think
La Russa will be in there interfering with everything, screwing everything up forever and ever? And he's got Reinsdorf helping him out, right? Got his back to do Tony's bidding.
All I'm going to say right here, do you think there's any chance Tony La Russa is the manager in April?
No. Okay. No, I think there's no chance of that.
Do you think there's any chance Grady Sizemore's the manager?
I think there's a chance. I don't think it's huge, but I think there's a chance. The name I saw somebody in an article today about the White Sox was not attacking the White Sox, but talking about the future. They threw out the name David Ross. That's an interesting name. Skip Schumacher is the Tony La Russa coach choice. I think that's a terrible choice. You don't go to a failing organization. I mean, yes, Skip's got good history, but he's coming from a failing organization to an even worse one. No, get somebody. Ross did well with the Cubs. They just saw the chance at Craig Counsell and then jumped it, and he got screwed. Just like Ricky Renteria got screwed by the White Sox. He should still be the manager, and things would probably be fine.
They may not be fine, but they wouldn't be quite so bad.
They'd be a hell of a lot better.
That's for sure. We'll, I'm sure, have more information in that department next time we record. We'll also we'll get at you again sometime in this postseason here. I'm excited for postseason baseball. I love postseason baseball.
Oh yeah,
it's go through this whole long thing to get here, and it always seems to be worth it, and it's always exciting. So hopefully you're enjoying our weird Monday Braves Mets thing we got going on. We'll have the full playoff picture by the end of the day, and they start tomorrow, which is good luck, Atlanta, because I saw Chris Sale's got to go game 2 today. So it's gonna be really interesting. But thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you next time right here on Sharing Sox.